We're now live on YouTube.
Thank you, and good evening to everyone. Welcome to the Broadland Cabinet meeting of the 29th of September. Just like to remind everyone that this is a public meeting that is being live streamed and is being watched on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. Again, just to remind you to follow the usual etiquette that we have with the virtual meetings, so that we can follow and make sure we bring people in at the right points in time and introduce them. So if you do want to speak, if you just raise your hand, then obviously I will bring you in at the appropriate time. First item on the agenda is declarations of interest, which we'll go through and do with the roll call. So James, if I can ask you to do that.
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Copplestone, can you confirm your presence and if you have any interest?
Present, no declarations, thank you.
Councillor Emsell.
Here, nothing to declare.
Councillor Hempsell.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor J. Leggett.
Present and an interest to declare, as I'm a trustee of Leeway Domestic Violence Abuse Services, and that is mentioned in agenda item 11.
Councillor Mancini Boyle.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Vincent.
Present and no declarations.
And Councillor Wymark.
Present, no declarations of interest.
And the other members present. Councillor Adams, do you have any declarations of interest?
None, Chairman, thank you.
Councillor Kelly.
No declarations of interest.
Councillor K. Leggett, do you have any interests?
I believe Councillor Ken Leggett has left.
No, I'm here.
Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Present and no interest, but for some reason my picture is gone, fortunately for you. Oh, the host has asked you to start your video. Oh.
Councillor Norden.
Present, but no declarations.
And Councillor Riley.
Present, no declarations. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. That's complete.
Okay, thank you, everybody. That moves us on then to apologies for absence. I believe everybody's here, so we don't have any apologies. Moving on then to item 3 and 4, we have the minutes of the Cabinet meeting held on the 25th of August. Can I take those as being correct, or are there any changes, amendments, updates, deletions that anyone would like? Okay, I can't see anything, so I will take those as being a true record of that meeting, and I will sign those off. Are there any matters arising for anybody that isn't on tonight's agenda?
Doesn't appear to be any.
No, I'd perhaps just pick up on the Norfolk Fighting Fund. I believe we've released the funding for that now, have we, Rodney?
So, yes, I've agreed to release the funding, but I haven't actually been requested to pay the money over yet, but I will follow that up. But yes, certainly under the delegation that was agreed, we've agreed to make that payment.
Brilliant. Thank you for confirming that. Okay, it moves us on to public speaking. I don't believe we have any public speaking, do we, James?
There's no public speaking, Chairman.
Thank you for that. We have a number of non-cabinet members joining us tonight. So again, if any of you wish to raise anything or join in or have a comment to make, I'm happy to take that. So if you just let me know that you want to speak on the relevant item, then I'll introduce you at the right point in time. Looking at the next item, so it's item 7, is then overview and scrutiny committee. Again, I'm assuming, Steve, and Tony, you would like to come in at relevant points, but is there anything you want to put in at this point in time?
No, thank you. Excuse me. No, thank you, Sean, with a croaky voice. Not at this point.
Nor me either, Sean, at this time. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that. So I think we just need to receive your minutes of the 8th of September.
Yes, nothing to add on the minutes, Sean.
Okay, thank you for that, Steve. So we'll receive those. That moves us on then to item 8, being the wellbeing panel. Fran, did you want to just come in and tell us what happened here?
Thanks, Chairman. Yes, I just wanted to receive the minutes. Really, that there was only one item of discussion, really, which was the Greater Norwich Homelessness Strategy and the South Norfolk and Broadland Rough Sleeper Statement, which is actually to be discussed under item 11. So I'll leave it there, really, and we can talk about it thereafter. Victoria's given us a wonderful presentation, I'm sure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. So we'll receive the minutes of the wellbeing panel and look forward to Victoria's presentation later. Okay, so that then moves us on to the delivery plan. So if you remember, the delivery plan initially came to us a few months ago, picking up the joint activity and the post-COVID activity of Broadland and South Norfolk, to get recovery up and going and all of the different things fitting into that. Looking around, is that you, Hannah? Yes, I can see you over there. So Hannah, do you want to present that, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone. So in front of you this evening, you have the updated 2020-21 delivery plan. As the Chairman outlined, as agreed at Council in July this year, the delivery plan has been updated and reviewed to reflect the impact of the response and recovery effort for the pandemic and therefore all the Council priority projects. It's important to recognise that obviously the pandemic is ongoing and its impacts are ongoing, and therefore the plan needs to remain flexible and adaptable to any further changes required. I won't go through every individual detailed change within the plan, but just to summarise some of the main changes that have been included. Within the updated delivery plan, there is now reference to the key work which has been identified in the recovery plan. There's also continuing and ongoing COVID-19 response work which is being undertaken. There are some impacts on timescales and milestones. There are some adjustments to focus areas based on resource allocations, and there are also some budgetary implications on key projects and programmes. Also included within the report is a proposal for the delivery plan for 21-22, and that is developed as a one-year plan rather than the originally proposed two-year plan, to ensure again that the Council can remain as flexible and adaptable as possible to any changing priorities or impacts of the pandemic. So I'll therefore draw your attention to the two recommendations in the report, which is for Cabinet to recommend to Council. So the first is the adoption of the updated delivery plan, and the second is that Council approves the development of a one-year plan for 21-22, which we brought back to Councils in February 21. Take any questions?
Okay, thank you for taking us through that, Hannah. So any questions? Joe, do you want to go first?
Thank you very much, Chair. Hannah, I was just looking at page 31, where our money comes from, and I noticed the 2020-21 outlook, and I just wondered about the quite a big disparity between controllable funding from Broadland and South Norfolk. Is that because of capital programme projects, or is that perhaps something to do with leisure centres? Could you just sort of explain why Broadland is 17.2 million and South Norfolk 31.6, please? Thank you.
Yeah, and Rodney may want to come in on this, but absolutely, Joe, you've covered it. It's around capital and it's around leisure centres as well.
Right, and also commercial as well. South Norfolk has a slightly bigger commercial portfolio as well.
Okay, thank you for that, Rodney and Hannah. I've got Judy, you wanted to come in, then Fran.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to refer to page 44 or perhaps I should preface my question by another question, which is, you said it's updated due to the pandemic and COVID-19. Is this at any given point in time, or is it as now? Because I'm just interested on page 44, there's the options for the C1. That decision has been made, so C2 should be changed a bit.
Yeah, this was written a few weeks ago, so I think that the reason for that inclusion in that way was to allow for the dependency on whatever outcome was taken on C1. So that's probably why that one was written that particular way, to allow for flexibility depending on what the decision was taken through the decision-making process.
You want us to come back, Judy?
Yes, I just, and then when are we going to see the updated plan or a current plan? Could you just remind me what the plan is for that? There's rather a lot of plans in that statement, sorry.
So what you have in front of you now is the updated delivery plan for 2020-21. So this is an in-year update to that delivery plan. So obviously this plan was agreed last financial year for delivery for this year, and has been updated in the year to reflect changes in priorities or focus areas. We'll be looking to develop a new plan. I'm adding to the list of plans in this sentence as well. We're looking to develop a new plan for 21-22, which will pick up the activities for the next financial year, but this is the update to this year's plan.
Okay, so thank you for that, Hannah. Just looking, sorry, I've got to C1 now, and I see that's to do with the waste model. So is there going to be a C1B that has the contract renewal outsource activities?
If I may, Chair, I might pass to Jamie to pick this one up, if that's okay. I could see you were muted, Jamie.
It was in anticipation, Hannah. I'm kind of, you know, with Hannah's discretion, I'm at your disposal, Chair. Clearly, and members know, because of informal briefings, we are proceeding with the necessary work to put in place the project for procurement. We had a first, I think, very useful initiation meeting last night, again informally. We can revisit this now and update it and bring it back, you know, subsequent to your decision as an updated version, or we can update it in the next round of planning cycle, as Hannah's articulated. I'm really kind of at your disposal as to what we do. The text will look the same irrespective. So it's really up to you how you'd like to handle it, I think.
Okay, just thank you for that, Jamie. Just picking up on that, then when does this next come back to us? When will it first report outcomes? Is that, I believe it's on a quarterly basis. So are we looking sort of November time?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So we do bring updates in as part of the quarterly reporting. So as you say, the first update for Q1 and Q2 will come in November. In terms of the revised plan for 21-22, that will be coming through to councils in February, but we'll bring in the in-year reports on a quarterly basis for this plan.
Chairman, can I come in there, please?
Please do, Trevor.
Chairman, if I can help, clearly this needs to be updated to cover the direction that needs to be taken and the appropriate actions listed. Officers can update this after this meeting through agreement with the portfolio holder, and when we bring it back in the normal quarterly cycle, it will be there for you, present and correct, but we'll update it straight after this meeting to have an appropriate plan for officers to work to.
Okay, that sounds like a prudent way of doing it, or a practical way of doing it. So thank you for that. So yeah, if it can be updated, and then when it comes back with its first report back in November Cabinet, then we will see it with its updated format. So okay, Fran.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I just want a couple of questions really to clarify. Measure, well, reference 15 here refers to A7. It's the number of vulnerable residents, pardon me, supported by our discretionary prevention services. It says 2,000 here to be supported by Q4 being successful outcome. Is that 2,000 across the two councils, or, I mean, is there a breakdown for Broadland and South Norfolk there? But, and also as well, measure 19, about successful interventions to prevent or relieve homelessness. we're looking at 80% being successful outcome by fourth quarter. Is that across the two councils as well? Because I genuinely thought it'd be higher than that to be successful, but obviously linked in with the services and how we're looking to change. And I know Mike and Jamie and I have had discussions about the hub and additional services, and obviously the community team are looking to put extra services in. So I didn't know if you want to make any comment on that. Thank you.
Happy to come in initially on this one, and then again I may look to Jamie to come in. So for those measures, yes, they are an average across the two, but as we report through on a quarterly basis, there'll be specific measures for Broadland within there, so that should come through on those quarterly reporting. But again, Jamie may want to come in on that one.
Did you want to add anything, Jamie?
I think probably what I'd do, Chair, is invite Mike to answer the question, because I think he'd give a better answer than I, if that's all right, Mike.
Yeah, that's no problem. Thank you, Chairman.
No pressure then, Mike. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. They're I think they're still going downwards. They're both Fran. They're joint targets. So what we're looking to do, obviously, as we go through that, and then what we'll need to reflect on is the amount of demand that obviously we get over the next quarter and next year. But yeah, those two are joint targets, so we'd expect to see a 55-45% roughly split on those two.
Okay,
Thank you.
When we see this reporting, will we actually see the difference? So will we see a number for Broadland and a number for South Norfolk as well as an overall number?
On the actual report, yeah, we'll break that down very specifically, Chairman, because it's important that we do that for both ones. So you'll get an exact number for your district. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Fran, did you have any other questions?
Only I just didn't know if well, Mike probably Mike back on the spot really, but obviously Jamie's agreeing with that. We spoke about the hub, and I didn't know if you wanted to speak a little bit about the hub and the way we're looking to improve the hub and how it's working across the two councils.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So and thank you, Councillor Waymark. So we're looking at, so we've got a help hub, the opportunity to really build on South Norfolk and Broadland collaboration and build that resilience. We know that we've got a number of partners, for example, the police, children's services, who now work across South Norfolk and Broadland areas. So we've got some economies of scale there to build, and we know that when we in Broadland, we've had a very largely paper-based type process with a phone call. We've got the opportunity now to bring in a kind of more online forum for that. We've certainly seen a much more positive collaboration, actually. And one thing that COVID has done is physically travelling around for members of staff in an area like Broadland is quite challenging. Actually, to go on Zoom and have a collaboration session on a Zoom meeting is actually an incredibly efficient way of doing that. So there's a number of things that we are looking to do, and also building on our community hub model. So we've had a fantastic response from our community in terms of volunteers and community groups who want to work with us. And we've started an embryo of a community links project to really kind of capture all that willingness. And people tell us that communities are dead, which is absolutely rubbish. So galvanizing that continued support to say, actually, do you know, you've helped us through this initial phase. It's probably going to be a second phase, but actually in the longer term, how do we galvanize that community support to help residents just to that really low level opportunity? So it's certainly something we're talking with Councillor Waymark on, and I'll certainly be pleased to update that in future cabinet reports. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you for that, Mike. And yeah, the team are doing a phenomenal amount of work. So and it's being well received, and the members would like to thank you and your team for everything you're doing. So thank you for that. I've got Judy followed by Trudy followed by Joe, and I know Steve, you want to come in, so then you come in after that, Steve. So Judy, do you want to go first?
Sorry, my shortcut to unmuting didn't work. First, before I get to my question, can I just thank Mike from my perspective, being involved in the Sproston help group that was set up when COVID started. I know how helpful that their team has been. So thank you, Mike, very much for that. My question about going back to the plan is that, just for clarity, referring to the waste ones, sort of 26 onwards, just to confirm that these will be split between, the figures will be split between Broadland and South Norfolk. Thank you.
Sorry, Gia, are you seeking that they are going to be split, or are you telling us that they're going to be split?
Well, I was asking first.
I assume that's a yes then, Jamie?
Yes, they will, Chair.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, so thank you for that. So Trudy, followed by Joe.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Actually, just 2 or 3 things I've got around the finance side. I can see obviously the revaluation for business rates has now obviously been delayed by the government for 2 years. So I'm wondering, L4 on page 73 regarding procurement of a business rates forecasting system, it now actually says this is on hold and may not be delivered. Is that because of the delay in the revaluation?
So if I can come into that sort of thing. No, let's say the reason we really want to do a forecasting system is very much to help us determine whether or not we should be in a pooling arrangement or not. So the reason we may not actually get this delivered is obviously the work that's been done to deal with COVID-19. So obviously our work plans to deliver has been a bit pushed back. So that's why we're actually suggesting it's not been done as yet, but hopefully we will still do it. But actually, if there's a second wave of COVID and our actually resources get moved onto additional business grants, for instance, then it may get delayed. So it's just flagging that up as a risk to members.
Okay, so it's not that it will never be delivered, it's just delayed.
Yes, potentially
Okay.
delayed, yes.
Brilliant. And another one was regarding the council tax collections and the business rate collections. Obviously on page 73, you've highlighted that they may be affected. Will we still leave the original target that was put in the delivery plan, or will we amend that? Because we know it will be affected in some way. So you will not be able to hit that original target, or will we just report that we haven't hit that target, but the reasons why are?
At the moment, I haven't put a proposal to reduce that target, mainly because I don't know what I would want to reduce that target to. So actually, we're currently at what, 98, 99%. I wouldn't know whether I need to really get it down to 97 or 93%. So in many ways, I prefer to keep that original target and try and see how close we can get to that original target.
Chairman, can I come in there?
Please do, Trevor.
I think it's really useful to, once we've set a target, to leave the target. The target's there to stimulate the conversation. So if we're falling short, absolutely, why are we falling short? And understanding why there's a variance, rather than a preference to change the target. Then at the end of the year, we can explain where the variance came from. I think if members are comfortable with that approach on this and any other targets. Thank you.
No, that's fine. You just obviously want the explanation when we do get the result. There obviously is going to be a very good explanation why we haven't hit it. And the only other one I had, I don't know if there's a contradiction in the 2 statements. So we've got F7 talking about the electric vehicle charging points at Thorpe Lodge in Q4, whereas in M1 on page 74, it says they're on hold because of the new ways of working, which is obviously quite correct. So I don't know if F7 should be worded differently or not. I'm not sure.
Hannah, I guess we're looking at you.
Yeah, we can absolutely pick that up and make sure that there's a consistency there. In terms of those points, probably Emma best to come in from a facilities point of view.
Yeah, so from a facilities point of view, you're right. At the moment, that is on hold whilst we look at where we are with new ways of working, the return to the office project, and we'll make sure that all ties up.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for that, Emma. Thanks, Hannah. Okay, that moves us on to Joe, then to Steve.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to pick up A4 on page 39 to improve aspirations and skills of residents. We've always done some great work in Broadland. Our Choices programme is amazing and has helped lots of people. But I also just wanted to say our Norfolk Strategic Fund, we hope to use that for enterprise facilitation and business enhancement, and that will purely be for the residents of Broadland. As I understand, it's just Broadland that wants to take part in that scheme. Also, under leisure, B2, page 42, it mentions the country park at Howan Plantation. We're really forging ahead with that. The new project officer has started, and I hope to see plans quite shortly on that. And then Trudy was just talking about the parking strategy, which we agreed to Economic Success Panel and electric vehicle charging points back in summer 2019. I understand that has all been put on hold because of staff capacity, the reorganisation, then COVID. So I hope to see that pushing forward shortly. I think that is everything. Thank you. Oh, sorry, there was one other thing. The F3 on page 52, the Food Innovation Centre mentions Broadland District Council and South Norfolk Council. As I understand it, the Food Innovation Centre is purely a Broadland project. So could that be amended, please? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Joe. I'm sure that will be updated appropriately. Okay, so moving on then to Steve, you wanted to come in?
Thank you, Sean. Yes, the committee recommended options 1 and 2. In so doing, it's just interesting to note actually that during the ONS session, many of the points that have been sought tonight in terms of clarification from various cabinet members, coincidentally, were also raised within the ONS as well, particularly in regards to things like the 2,000 number, the split, the 80%, etc. So it's quite interesting that when you look at the report, ONS was asking very similar clarifications as well. So that's all to the good. Just one other point, Sean. It was also mentioned that during the measures that have been taken within the market towns, that a better approach will be taken in the future around making sure that members are consulted and involved with that across all the market towns. Because of the situation with COVID, things that's been done very quickly, obviously, but it was actually noted in the minute as well that in the future members would be fully involved and consulted in the processes as well. So just flagging that up for members' information, really, Sean. Thank you, Sean.
Okay, so thank you for that, Steve. Yeah, I think that's a good one. I think more so across all of the members is just really picking up the member protocol around the communications and keeping members informed when we're doing things in any of their parishes as such. So it's just useful for any member to know what's going on in their parish. I think, yes, it applies to obviously you in Aylsham as one of our key market towns, but it applies to anyone else in their particular village or their market town. So I think that's a good one to have. Okay, I've got just one question to add to the list, so sorry for this, and it's to do with measure 2. It talks about doing the customer satisfaction survey in Q3, which obviously is coming up. How's that going to be done? And I guess why I'm flagging up is there's a Broadland news that goes out end of November. That might be an appropriate tool to use, that's all.
So there's a current project underway to scope up what that would look like and what that would cover, and therefore the different channels that would come through. Obviously, we're picking that up as part of Q3, so we can bring an update to members on that in terms of what that survey will look like once that initial project has been developed and proposals put forward.
Okay. So when will we know those proposals? Do you know when they're coming back?
So some initial proposals are being drawn together over the next couple of months. So I would anticipate that we could bring something back around November time for an update.
Okay, thank you for that. Again, just if the intent is to use the Broadland News, it goes out, I think it's late November. John can confirm that if you need to know the dates, but if that's being used, then that's there. But yeah, maybe other mechanisms that you're using. Okay, thank you for that, Hannah. Can't see any other hands up, so come back to the recommendations on page 27, recommendation 8.1 and 8.2, which is approved to council the adoption of the delivery plan and also for the development of the one-year plan for 2021-22, which will come back to council in February 21. So I would like to propose those. Are we all in favour of those? We can just show. Who can I see? Jonathan, yes. Lana, yep. So that's everyone's got their hand up.
To be unanimous, Chairman.
Okay. Sorry, Emma. I've sort of done that in a funny sort of way. Are you okay that I do it like that? Sorry.
Naughty, Chairman. But we were all on one screen, so we're okay this evening. As long as everyone's hand is clearly raised, then that's fine. You're on mute, Sean. You're obviously saying something to us, we can't hear you.
Sorry, Emma. It's funny. I was just saying, I think you had a problem with, I can't hear you very well, so your sound is very faint. But I think you told me I could get away with it just this once.
I'll let you get away with it just this once, yeah. But we're all on the same screen, so it's fine. Hopefully that's better sound now as well.
No, that sounds better. Thank you for that. Okay, so that moves us on to the next item, which is the planning consultations. So is this you, Helen, or is Phil doing this? Oh, Phil's nodding, so that's Helen, you. Over to you, so Helen.
Thank you, Chair. As outlined in your report, these are significant consultations we're being invited to comment on. They are the most significant changes we've had since 1947 to the planning system. So there's two consultations outlined in your paper, one on changes, current changes to the planning system, which is due to go out this Thursday, the 1st of October. And the more significant one is consultation on the white paper, planning for the future. And I'll just outline the key messages in both of those papers for you. So the white paper, planning for the future, as starting on page 98 for you, is actually looking to radically change the way we produce our local plans. So at the moment, our local plans, a lot of the detail comes through, you allocate and then you have a planning application and you deal with outline and reserve matters. What they're looking to do moving forward, as suggested in the white paper, and we haven't got all the detail, but the direction of travel is to have a new local plan, which is front loading all of the main issues, if you like, when you consider planning application. That wouldn't have to involve, and we've made it quite clear in our draft consultations, that it would be needed a lot of community involvement and liaising with the community and all the local and town plan parish councils. But it would be us to come up with the local plan, so we have that control. But they are looking to actually have those over 3 key areas, what they're calling growth areas, those areas suitable for substantial development, renewal areas and protected areas. And they're suggesting that local plans should set out clear rules rather than general policies for development. The other key theme in the white paper is actually this would all be digitized. So you'd actually, for everybody, they would be able to see what's happening in their area, know where development is happening, and that would all be on a common platform. In our responses, we're noting that actually we're quite a rural district and not everybody is on that digital platform as at the moment, so they may not be moving forward or be confident. So we're obviously raising that as that also needs to be provided for. As part of the development management changes, the government is proposing to move to having more policies within the National Planning Policy Framework, which will also need to be updated, and having less local plan development management policies potentially, we're flagging up that although some of those responses, national policies could be generic, we do still feel there should be a need to have some local level. So that's picked up in our responses. The other key change in the white paper is developer contributions. So moving from what we have at the moment within the Greater Norwich Development Partnership, with as a community infrastructure levy, to having an infrastructure levy that is nationally set, value-based flat rate charge. There again, we haven't got the detail on how the transition would work and how the existing system would work in relation to a new national set levy. And there is a danger that some developers might swap to the new infrastructure levy with new permissions if the transition arrangements aren't laid out. So that's clearly something that we've highlighted that needs to be thought about when these new changes come into place. The other emphasis they're looking at is enforcement, which we would commend, which is actually setting local planning authorities more emphasis on planning standards and taking enforcement action. So I think that's something we're very proactive at the moment at Broadland District Council, but clearly the emphasis is actually we should strengthen our enforcement powers. Going on to the changes to the current planning system, which is also picked up in the white paper, there are some fundamental changes in that which we are raising concerns on. And that relates to the changes to what's called the standard methodology for assessing our local housing need. There's been a lot of national comment on this already, and there is national direction of travel that this is likely to change, because for many authorities like ourselves, this actually will make it very difficult for us to maintain a land supply and deliver all the houses that they're looking for us to do. So just as an example for you, at the moment within the existing standard methodology, which we do show our need across the Greater Norwich area, for Broadland at the moment, the local plan requirement is, or the annual, I'll refer to the annual local housing need, is providing 517 dwellings, and for Broadland that would increase to 922 per year, which for the Greater Norwich area, that means we would have to go from building 2,008 houses a year to 3,256. And in the plan period, what we're currently working towards, that would be an increase of 25,000 dwellings across the whole Greater Norwich area. So we have made concerns within our responses to that. And I'd just like to add that as a result of these discussions at both place shaping panel and overview and scrutiny, it was left to officers to actually give more strength to those questions, and in our responses to actually give those figures and actually raise our concerns about whether that would be delivered and undermined where we're going with our housing need. So that is being strengthened in our responses. The other area of concern within the changes to the current planning system is the increasing when we would actually deliver affordable housing. At the moment, the national level is at 10 dwellings, but in the current changes to the planning system, which could come in this year, they are looking to increase that threshold from 10 homes to 40 or 50. Given most of our sites that come forward for 40 or 50 dwellings that provide our affordable need in accordance with our existing policies, we are raising serious concerns about that increase in levy. The other two themes in that paper are lifting the securing first homes, which is having first homes as a percentage within your affordable housing need of 25% dwellings. First homes being homes that are available on the market at 30% discount, but they're looking for all your affordable housing coming forward for 25% of your percentage at first homes, which in principle we don't object to in our suggested responses. And the fourth item being extending the current permissions in principle provisions for major development. We do have concerns about that and the scale that they want to propose that, and that's reflected in our responses. So that's just giving a very quick overview of what is in your full papers in front of you. And then at Appendix 2 and Appendix 3, we do actually give our suggested responses to that. I'm more than happy to say what the responses were from place shaping panel and overview and scrutiny, which were the same recommendations of additionality, or I can leave that for the portfolio holder or Councillor Riley to update members.
Is it a list that you've got, Helen?
Yes, it is.
I mean, it's probably worth just throwing that at us then, I would suggest.
Okay, so at both place shaping panel and overview and scrutiny, there was one question that on page 105 that we specifically left for members to come up with a response for us, and that was for three key words that described how we saw the planning system. So those three words that came forward were fragmented, overly complicated, and time consuming. So that will be added to our responses. In relation, sorry, that was in relation to question 1 on page 105, sorry. In relation to question 4 of the white paper, the top 3 priorities, they came out as increasing the affordability of new housing, the environment, biodiversity, and action on climate change needs to be assessed as part of the design and location of new homes and places. And the third one being supporting the local economy with more or better local infrastructure. However, because we feel this is an online questionnaire, if we just have the ability to tick 3 of the suggested choices, then they would be the environment, biodiversity, and action on climate change, supporting the local economy, and increasing the affordability of new housing. As already mentioned, for questions 8A in the white paper, and also they will be expanded on the current changes to the planning system, questions 1 to 6, we will actually putting in the agreed figures that would be included on the methodology and those concerns in increasing numbers. So that will be added to the detail, and also stating that we don't feel they would be deliverable if the housing methodology was revised. I think they were all those covered, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that, Helen. Lana, is there anything you wish to add?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So the recommendation is asking Cabinet to approve these draft responses and then delegate it to myself, the leader and director of place, to finalise the responses. I think I will, I'll endorse everything that Helen said. I think there are further points that need to be made in terms of clarity of whether, because at the moment we insist that any affordable housing is sort of peppercorned amongst the market housing, with the new thresholds. It is when on reading the consultation, it's unclear whether this will still be possible or whether we're going for larger swathes of affordable houses, which goes against the council's ethos at the moment. Equally, with the Cabinet's permission, I would like to strengthen our position in terms of the protected landscapes that we abut onto, one of them being the Waveney Valley, and a significant number of triple SIs and other protected areas, and of course the Broads. These are low-lying wetlands with the highest number of protected and native species amongst all the national parks in the country. And there, and it's not just the executive area that gets affected, which clearly will have protected status under the new revisions. It's the whole catchment area that involves, where they capture water from, etc. So I believe that our response needs to be strengthened in that position. Otherwise, we're putting our environment seriously at risk. And that's pretty much it. So, and a couple of, word revisions in terms of, economic success of various parts of the demographics. But I hope that, that you agree with the thrust of the document. I felt it was important to weave in the environmental strategy because we spent a considerable length of time and resource and energy developing our environmental strategy. So I believe that it deserves pride of place in our consultation response as well. So I'll leave it to you to let me know what you think if there's any discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lana, for taking us through that. So, Joe, you got your hand up. You got a question?
Yes, thank you. Helen, you talked a lot about a huge increase in housing growth across our county. I would like to see a really strong response in planning for strategic economic growth areas, and how that works in relation to infrastructure, because at the moment our Greater Norwich area is great. You know, we're all charging CIL, and I'm pleased to know that that is going to be, there's going to be commonality between councils with a national infrastructure levy, because I think we need to consider infrastructure in terms of our arterial roads and sort of looking at roads going cross-boundary, which haven't previously sort of been considered when looking at sort of funding, particularly other than possibly the Long Stratton bypass. I note that the Scotto Enterprise Park is expanding and there's possibility of a conference centre there, but the arterial North Walsham Road is absolutely appalling, and I know there's huge amounts of homes going into North Walsham, so we need to really consider infrastructure and economic growth. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Joe. Yeah, I think you're right there. It needs to make sure we do pick up the economic growth to enable that to be facilitated through the necessary infrastructure. Jonathan, sorry, did you put your hand up, or was that just a just? Yep. So, Jonathan, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, well, obviously looking at this, obviously this is a very comprehensive piece of work, and Helen should be congratulated on all the effort that's gone into it. Obviously, with anything on these situations with a government white paper, the devil is in the detail, and I believe that they have drilled down through the different committees and looked at all that. Very pleased to hear that the local communities will be taken forward with this, because obviously this is the plan, that you have a development plan that is good, but then it doesn't take the local communities. And I feel that with all the different questions that have been raised, I believe we are in a very good place with this, and I just wanted to congratulate Helen on all the work that's gone into it, and Phil as well, obviously.
Okay, thank you for that, Jonathan. Lana, did you want to come back on something, or is that from an earlier
Well, yes,
comment?
I did, if that was possible. Unless there are any other questions, I'd prefer to round up at the end. I think it was in response to what Joe was saying that, absolutely correct, because, Helen and I and Phil might, well, and you, Lida, we might want to look at our response in terms of the duty to cooperate, because highways and other infrastructure is something that, and water resource sort of arises out of our duty to cooperate and the NHS provision. And if that is no longer a requirement, then how do these strategic, where does the strategic planning for the strategic infrastructure then sit if, that duty is then removed? So I think perhaps, Joe raises a really important point that we might, weave that into, because I think, our duty to cooperate forum, I feel, is very successful and does some really good work. So with, that being taken out of the equation, there's, we need to put a better consultation response in for that too. But
okay.
Yeah, Helen, Phil, have you got a comment on that quickly for Cabinet?
I think we can definitely weave those in, and as we said, they are suggested responses, and because the white paper isn't due until the 29th of October, and there's still a lot of discussions on that nationally, and I'm still attending discussions on that, we can certainly weave those into our responses, and obviously ultimately it's for yourself and Councillor Vincent and Phil to sign those off. So we will be expanding on those as we get more intelligence and as we think about it in more detail, because obviously we've started the ball rolling and we do want to get it right and nail it. So we've got an opportunity to add in and reflect on what we've already said, but certainly those points we can add in.
Okay, thank you for that, Helen. I think, there's an element here where we need to strengthen some of the responses. The one I've got just before I go to Steve is just picking up on the land banking issue, because that wasn't really dealt with in the white paper or the planning changes. So again, that would be something, if we can weave that in somewhere, would be useful, because that is an ongoing issue for us around getting development away. Steve, did you want to just come in at this point, and also perhaps if there's anything else that we needed to pick up that you may feel we haven't?
Thank you, Sean. Yes, no, it's really well been covered, Sean. I mean, obviously I think it's 2 points additionally here that yourself and it has also been raised as well by Lana just now, and Joe, which we didn't touch on actually at ONS, but they are excellent points. I have to say, just sitting here listening to those, and obviously correct as well. Just in relation to the recommendations, not to labour this on time, Chair, for the Cabinet, we are recommending options 1 and 2, but 1 amended in line with how Helen laid out the proposition coming from Wellbeing and ourselves. So you'll see in the amendment there in italics proposed by subject to the inclusion of the amendment proposed by a place shaping panel and the inclusion of examples and responses in question 16 and the white paper which Helen read out. So that's the amendment we're recommending in line with the with option 1, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Steve. I think that's on Helen's list of things to pick up, so that will work. So we've had the recommendations put to us at 8.1 and 8.2 by the portfolio holder. So I think, James, we need to do a roll call.
Yes, Jim. Councillor Copplestone.
4.
Councillor Emsall.
4.
Councillor Hempsall.
4. Did that need to be seconded, James? Just asking.
Perhaps it did actually need to be seconded.
You can put me down as second it, then James, please.
Yeah. Councillor Hempsall.
4.
Councillor J. Leggett.
4.
Councillor Mancini Boyle.
4.
Councillor Vincent.
4.
And Councillor Wymark.
4.
That's unanimous.
Thank you for that, James. And again, thank you for Helen and your team for the work that's gone into pulling all those things together, and also the members through the different inputs through ONS and the place shaping panels to try and get as many different thoughts, views and ideas brought in so that they can all be fed back up the line to government. Hopefully we'll get this thing sorted at some point. Moving on, we then moves on to the Greater Norwich Homeless Strategy. So I think Victoria, have I seen you? Is Victoria doing this one? No, I can't see her. Who's presenting?
Yeah, Victoria's here.
Ah, yeah, there
She
you
is
are.
here.
So good evening, Victoria. So over to you, if you could present for us the homeless strategy.
Lovely, thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone. So this is presenting both the Greater Norwich Homelessness Strategy and the South Norfolk and Broadland Rough Sleeper Statement for approval and adoption. So it's the 4th iteration of a homelessness strategy that we've produced in partnership with Norwich City and South Norfolk Councils. We're also presenting the Broadland and South Norfolk Rough Sleeper Statement. And this reflects the joint funding that we received from MHCLG, which enabled us to launch the first step rough sleeper service across Broadland and South Norfolk. As with the homelessness strategy, and in recognition of the sub-regional nature of homelessness, we'll be seeking to develop a joint rough sleeper strategy with Norwich from 2022 onwards. So at the core of the homelessness strategy is a real person-centred preventative approach. The priorities have been developed in partnership with partner organisations and reflect actions that aim to alleviate immediate issues of homelessness, such as people fleeing domestic abuse, so that they have somewhere safe to stay that meets their needs. But we also want to have a look at the work we can do earlier than that, for example, through our Help Hub provision. And we also wanted to look at the wider drivers of homelessness, such as skills, employment, and accessing affordable housing. So in terms of mental health, we recognise that mental ill health can be a factor in terms of being at risk of homelessness. Conversely, the experience or threat of homelessness can impact hugely on someone's mental health. So we acknowledge that within each priority, part of the work we will be doing will be to work with partners to lessen that impact or to improve mental health to reduce the risk of further homelessness. So just moving on now to COVID, the 4 priorities have been tested against the current COVID situation to check if they're still valid. And yes, they are, if not more so. So from a rough sleeping perspective, at the beginning of lockdown, we were able to offer accommodation to all those rough sleeping in the districts, as per the government's Everyone In request. And this was because of the First Step Rough Sleeper service. It had become well established, so we had that on the ground knowledge out there to react quickly. However, a lot of demand into the housing team during this time has come from what we call transient and hidden homelessness. So people who are sofa surfing, overcrowded, or living with friends and family. And the lockdown meant that accommodation became untenable. And this is largely impacted on single and young people. And then in addition, as the freeze on court hearings for evictions ended last week, we've been preparing for a large increase in people facing homelessness due to the loss of their rented property. We're already getting a lot of contact from people who are worried. Just to give an idea of some of the current demand, we've been receiving about 2,000 calls per week into the housing team. A normal figure is around 750. So the housing team have been working hard by engaging with landlords and families to try and prevent homelessness for those who are sofa surfing or facing losing their privately rented home. And this will be continued throughout the actions outlined in the strategy. So the skills and training agenda is highly important as well in terms of preventing homelessness. A recent report by the Office of Budget Responsibility forecasts that 1 in 8 workers will be unemployed this winter. And this was something that we discussed at the last Greater Norwich Homelessness Forum. And there's great appetite from partners to link into existing skills work with that specific focus on homelessness prevention. So taking the strategy forward, this will be led by the Greater Norwich Homelessness Forum. It's chaired by our Director for People and Communities and attended by partner organisations, both statutory and voluntary. And the forum will be responsible for drawing up the action plans for each priority and monitoring the progress of the strategy. So just to summarise, the documents aim to present priorities with actions that further develop our joined up response with partners to tackling homelessness and rough sleeping. So this feeds well not only into the work underway to redesign the housing offer across Broadland in taking that person-centred approach to increase resilience and offer wraparound support for those who might need extra assistance, but also links into our council's COVID recovery work. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Victoria. Yeah, I think as you've outlined there, there's an amazing amount of work being done and achieved by the teams and the Everyone In approach right across the Greater Norwich area, which is hats off to all of the teams that have managed to achieve and I think, as far as I'm aware, get everyone housed, which is a key thing, or get everyone in, which is the key thing at this point in time. Fran, anything you want to add?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to the team for all their work, really. I mean, it's been phenomenal, really, how much work you've had to put in to support the people coming through. Victoria just said herself, you know, we're getting 2,000 calls per week, with normal level 750, which is quite phenomenal for anyone, that increase. But this work ultimately is about supporting people who are very, very vulnerable. You know, and I mean, I can throw lots of statistics here, and I mean, I say it's a very well written document, but if we bear in mind that the average age for a male and female is 80 and 83, longevity, really, and on the streets, you know, your average life span is likely to be 47 and 43. So a woman's likely to live half the time that she would normally do if she lives on the streets. That's why this is important. I mean, I think it's such an important document and something we must endorse. So I mean, as the Wellbeing Panel and the ONS, obviously the recommendation as is on page 122, and also 7.1 on page 129, I'd like to move that recommendation.
Okay, thank you for that, Fran. Are there any questions or any points anyone wants to raise? No, I can't see anything there. So that takes us then to the vote. So I think over to you,
Happy to
James.
second, Chairman.
Thank you, Trudy. So over to you, James.
Just going to ask that. Thank you. Councillor Copplestone.
4.
Councillor Emsall.
4.
Councillor Hempsall.
4.
Councillor J. Leggett.
4.
Councillor Mancini Boyle.
4.
Councillor Vincent.
4.
And Councillor Wymark.
4.
That's carried unanimously.
So thank you for doing that, James. Okay, so thank you for that. That moves us on then to item 12, being the loans to parish councils on page 174. Rodney, are you doing this one?
I am indeed, Chair. Thank you very much.
The
So
floor is yours.
Thank you very much. As I say, this is a very short report, very much. It comes from the decision in Cabinet back on the 16th of June to support the idea of giving town and parish councils the ability to apply for themselves for a loan if necessary in order to help them support themselves through COVID. To date, no council has actually approached us for a loan. However, just to make sure we can react quickly if they do, we're asking for delegation to myself in consultation with the portfolio holder for finance to agree any COVID related loans to parish councils of up to 25,000, provided these are repayable within 5 years. And I shall pause for questions.
Thank you for that, Rodney. Anything you wish to add, Trudy?
No, I think, as Rodney said, it is a short paper, but we wanted to get this through as quickly as possible in case there are any towns or parishes that are struggling. The only thing I would note that Rodney didn't mention is just the base rate plus 1%, just to ensure that we recoup what we would have got on a simple deposit account, really. But other than that, I'm happy to recommend item 5.1 on page 175.
Okay, thank you for that. Again, this is a useful safety net for the parish councils and town councils should they need it. So it's available if they do. Any questions of the portfolio holder or of the of Rodney? No, can't see anything there. Okay, so if I'll second the recommendation at 5.1 on page 75, James, over to you again.
Councillor Copplestone.
4.
Councillor Emsall.
4.
Councillor Hempsall.
4.
Councillor J. Leggett.
4.
Councillor Mancini Boyle.
4.
Councillor Vincent.
4.
And Councillor Wymark.
4.
That's carried unanimously.
Thank you for that, James. Okay, that moves us on then to the Council Tax COVID-19 Hardship Fund. Is this you again, Rodney?
No, it's me, Chair.
Okay, Richard. So over to you, Richard.
Thank you very much, Chair. So since March 2020, under the instruction of EMHCLG, the Benefit Service have been administering the Council Tax Hardship Fund. The payments were being paid under the discretionary power of Section 13A 1C Local Government Finance Act. Due to the turnaround time, we were not able to put the policy through the usual governance process. This report is therefore to request retrospective permission to administer this fund. The total allocation at the beginning was £637,000. We were instructed to pay £150 to all current claimants. This initial cost accounted for circa 442k, leaving us with 192k. This continues, this requirement to pay £150 to each new claimant is still in place. On top of the £150, the MHCLG guidance also recommended that if we anticipated any remaining funds, we would put a discretionary hardship fund into place. We therefore allocated £100,000 to this discretionary fund. Currently, the spend on this fund has only amounted to £12,000. As the demand on the hardship as the demand on the hardship fund has been less than originally anticipated, we are looking to reduce the allocation as part of the next budget update that is scheduled to come into the next cycle of meetings. I'd also like to add that this week, central government announced a £500 isolation payment to people who have to isolate due to COVID, where their income has been impacted and they're entitled to benefits. Those were the people we were seeing that we were assisting during the out of the hardship fund. So the need for this discretionary hardship fund has fallen even further. So as I said, this is largely retrospective. We've been doing the work under the instruction of MHCLG. So I'm asking Cabinet today to please retrospectively agree the policy for council tax COVID-19 Hardship Fund 2020-2021, so we can continue to administer this hardship fund following the central government guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Richard. Trudy, anything you want to add?
Yeah, thanks, Richard. I know it seems ages ago now, we initially had the conversation where Broadland were originally having problems getting these £150 out, but we did solve that. And yes, I had the conversation with the Assistant Director of Finance last week regarding moving the extra money back out. I'm wondering now if that's all going to change in light of the £500 now with the track and trace. And just to ask really in the recommendations, can this be reworded even to cover off the possible £500 that may have to, that the team will have to start paying out potentially to save time for you to be able to get on with it and residents are not then held up at all?
So we could reword it, and I had to consider that myself, bearing in mind it's only been this week. I just want to be clear, the £500 that we'll be paying out is not, this was an allocation to us in which we had to pay the £150 out of. The £500 will be directly reimbursed to us by central government. So it's slightly different in the way in which the finances will work.
Oh, okay. So it wouldn't come out of the
No.
100,000 allocation that okay, no, that's fine. Okay, no, so I'm quite happy then to put forward recommendation 8.1 on page 179.
Okay, thank you for that, Trudy. Any questions for the portfolio holder or for Richard? Judy?
I was going to ask, but I think you probably answered the question in your introduction, because we did talk about this one at the June cabinet, didn't we? So you were saying that we didn't have time to follow the official channels at that point?
Yes, that's true, and also we hadn't clarified what the actual additional discretionary hardship fund would be paid for. This is a separate policy, which within this report it details who is going to be eligible for that hardship fund, and it puts it more into a policy, therefore to come through the governance process.
Right. Thank you very much.
Again, just for checking the governance on that then, Richard, does that mean we've only paid people in line with what's in the policy, or as we were developing the policy, were other payments made to support people in their time of need?
No, so the £150 payment was made, and then in line with the policy within this document, other people have been paid for that £12,000 extra, but no additional payments outside this policy or the requirements sent by MHCLG have been made.
Thank you for confirming that. Are there any other questions? No. Okay, I can't see any. So moving on. So if I second that, then that gets us to the right place very quickly. So James, over to you for a roll call.
Councillor Copplestone.
4.
Councillor Emsall.
4.
Councillor Hempsall.
4.
Councillor J. Leggett. Sorry, I didn't hear that, Councillor Leggett.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Mancini Boyle.
4.
Councillor Vincent.
4.
And Councillor Wymark.
4.
And that's carried unanimously.
Thank you for doing that, James. Okay, that moves us on then to item 14, which is the risk management policy and strategy. This looks like it's got your name all over it, Emma.
That has Sean has got my name all over it, or actually I won't take the credit for this, it's got Faye Hayward's name all over it. I'm simply presenting it on her behalf as she's on maternity leave. I'd also like to thank Councillor Nurdin and the Audit Committee for all their work that they've put into this risk policy. It has been a labour of love, I think, over the last 18 months to 2 years. And as Councillor Nurdin rightfully pointed out, overview and scrutiny, Councillor Shaw started this when he was chairing Audit Committee back in the days of when I was the head of audit. So we've been working on this for quite some time. There's been some real thorough member involvement in this. I'm really pleased with the input that we've had. It went through overview and scrutiny last week as well. There are just a couple of changes. Steve, I'll save your voice as I know you're full of cold. There was a couple of discussions mainly around one of the appendices, if I just find that for you, Chairman. Appendix C on page 198, there was discussion around that impact table in terms of what's that telling us, are the values right, and does that correlate correctly? What the conclusion was from overview and scrutiny was to propose where it says impact type, to change that to impact on delivery of services. They felt that better fully reflected what that table there is showing you, but felt actually then the categories within there were absolutely fine. And Councillor Brennan has helpfully pointed out at the bottom of that table, we've misspelt breach. So we've got BREECH and we need an A instead of EE. So that's been changed as well. I'm happy to take questions on this, and I'm happy for Councillor Nurdin to put some views across as chair of the audit committee. But I endorse this to you, Chairman, and one of the things we need you to do as a cabinet is to make sure that you're happy with the risk appetite statement that's within the policy. So I'll pass that over to you, Chairman, for questions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for taking us through that, Emma. Is there anything you wanted to add, Trudy, before I go to Grant?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I was going to do exactly that. Thank the audit committee and obviously especially the chairman. I remember back in 2019 talking about this, and I must admit I hadn't even thought this hasn't come forward. So I applaud the work that has gone into this. I've read the appetite for risk statement. I'm perfectly comfortable with it. One thing I was just going to ask, with the, I'm assuming these scores that come out of the risk management, every time we have reports, will the scores be put on the reports as well as the statements?
So in terms of the updates that you get from the strategic risk register as they come through to you as cabinet, so they'll come through with the report that Hannah's team bring in terms of the performance measures and where we are with those, and you'll see from that the scoring and the RAG status, so you'll be able to get a flavour for where those risks are exactly.
That's great, Emma, that's helpful, thank you very much. In that case, I'm very happy to put forward recommendations 6.1 and 6.2 on page 184, subject to obviously if Grant would like to speak on it as well.
Good evening, Grant. Is there anything you wish to add on this?
Absolutely nothing to add. Emma has said it all, and thank you, Trudy, for those comments.
Wow, Grant, I'm gobsmacked. Jeez.
Oh
I don't think I've ever known you not to say anything. But can I, on behalf of the cabinet, thank you and your team for the work that they've done in overseeing and bringing this forward, and also for Emma and Faye and the work that they've done in getting it to this point. I do remember many moons ago being, and I think the right word is accosted by Councillor Shaw when I first became leader, that this was the thing that we didn't have, and he didn't understand why we didn't have it, and it was the thing that would help us around some of our governance and ensuring that we were on the straight and narrow. So I'm really pleased to see that this has come forward and is now in a place to be implemented. So well done to you, Grant, and your committee, and Emma and Faye and her team. So thank you so much for that. Okay, so we have recommendations before us. So the just picking up on the second recommendation there is the risk appetite that the finance portfolio mentioned that's on 11.4. I just wanted to check that all of the cabinet members have seen that and are comfortable with that, and then I'll go to any questions following that. Okay, so it looks like it. So are there any questions for anyone?
Chair, if I could.
Yes, Steve, do you want to come in?
Thank you, and thank you, Emma, for really trying to assist me here today. I'm suffering actually. Yeah, just to clarify the two options there. As you see, we're supporting this completely, and like you, Sean and Trudy, I remember Councillor Shaw raising this many moons ago, and there've been sort of debacles with some other councillors about it at the time, and I always thought he was right. And Grant's obviously seen that through with all the hard work of the officers as well. At ONS, as Emma's amplified, there was a discussion about the table and about perceptions in terms of what the table actually meant, and it was well clarified, and by another audit member as well, Sue Holland, that this is generic. This is the way that you measure. This is the risk that you do, and it's well understood within the audit community and governance. So it's really just about the heading to ensure that the heading reflects what it's actually about. And if that was done, then it's just about clarity in relation to that. So I'm just clarifying with Trudy. I couldn't quite hear, Trudy. Are you saying that you're happy with that reclarification where it states within the risk management policy? So that's like just the heading over the box?
Yes, no, I'm perfectly happy with that. That's fine.
Thanks, Trudy. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for that, Steve and Trudy. Moving on then, so we have the recommendations there on page 184, 6.1 and 6.2, which I'll second. So that means we need to go to the vote. James, over to you.
Right. Councillor Copplestone.
4.
Councillor Emsall.
4.
Councillor Hempsall.
4.
Councillor J. Leggett.
4.
Councillor Mancini Boyle.
4.
Councillor Vincent.
4.
And Councillor Wymark.
4.
That's carried unanimously.
Thank you for doing that, James. Okay, so that moves us on then to item 15. So I will move that the press and public be excluded from the meeting for the remaining items of business, because otherwise information which is exempt information by virtue of paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972 as amended by the Local Government Access to Information Variation Order 2006 would be disclosed to them.